All right. Good morning, everyone. We are live. Let's see how long we can make it before we get canceled today. But we got Tyler here, Harrison Trade Better, and I, with Better. I got Aaron on today, so he's the one I'm most concerned with. But we got Aaron. He's also a firefighter in DC, correct?
Correct.
All right. So main
Did you mute me
topic today,
already? I mean, I only said one word. Correct. Did I get muted?
no, I can hear you perfectly
That's aggressive.
fine,
It's a
but
microaggression.
So why don't you haven't been on recently, so why don't you kind of give my audience a quick recap of what you're investing in and, like you said, your background.
Let's see. Been investing for 20 years. Went through the crash. I've done accidental wholesaling. I've done flips, short term, long term, tax liens, not tax deeds. That's pretty much it. I'm part of syndications. I try to dabble in a little bit of everything and see what I like. I think it's the market dictates what I'm investing into as I've gotten older. But yeah, I'm not important.
Ooh,
I'm
that's
just
kind
some
of
schmuck with an opinion.
No, well, that's why we brought you on for today's topic. I know we kind of text back and forth on some topics, but there's a lot going on. Like last night had the debate Harris was on Fox, but for a lot of newer investors or people investing, we want to talk maybe like politics. Should the politics or political views impact the way you invest or what you're investing in? So, yeah, who wants to take a stab at it first?
Ooh. Okay.
I'll say, go
go
ahead,
for
go
it.
ahead, go ahead.
No, go Tyler. You first.
I mean, I think you have to know what, like, in the case of the presidential election, what both candidates are standing for, what their proposed plans are, and then you have to adjust accordingly depending on who gets elected. I mean, we don't really, I mean, we do and don't have control over that. And you have to see what policies they're in favor of, and then how does that affect your investing strategy. I mean, everybody knows Trump has a long history in real estate. Most likely, if he gets elected, we're going to have a lot of favorable legislation that's going to benefit real estate investors, and that's probably going to change a lot of things that we do. The most recent, like, big change that I think that went down the pipe that helped a lot of people is bonus depreciation and cost seg, right? That benefited a lot of people, whether they knew it or not. And actually, that's a good point, right? Most people, including myself, I wasn't really paying attention to that. It was once it was announced, and then we figured out how it worked. You apply it to your existing strategy, and it turned out to be very good for a lot of us. I think, like, I was just reading this morning, like, what differences are. Like, I already know what Trump's going to favor, and then what is Harris going to do? Sounds like a lot of first-time homebuyer grants, things like that, and whether or not I think those are good. How is that going to affect my investing strategy? Seems like she was targeting a lot of entry-level buyers, first-time home buyers, underserved communities. Okay, then if I'm going to remain a flipper, then I need to buy in those areas, entry-level homes, first-time home buyer, under a certain price point that match with what they're trying to push. So if there's a first-time home buyer grant, let's say, and it helps everybody who's buying a home under $100,000, for example, focus in that area, market in that area, buy houses in that area, and then sell in that area. So, yeah, I mean, it does definitely matter, but I think it's like you can't just throw your hands up when you lose in anything, right? If your candidate doesn't win, it doesn't. What are you going to do? Wait 4 years to invest? That's probably the worst idea. So that's my initial take on it.
Hey, Tyler, I got a question for you. So you mentioned that Kamala is going to try to go after these first-time home buyers, right? So he's offering $25,000 incentive, right? Do you think the $25,000 incentive is pandering, or do you think it's going to make an impact on buying homes?
I think it's pandering in the fact that I don't think it's the most effective solution for what they're trying to do. But yeah, I think it's like the person who gets elected in ASB, they say there's going to be Coke in the water fountains, right? I mean, it sounds cool, but, like, is it really the most effective strategy? I personally don't think so.
Coke in a water fountain.
I know.
I like that.
I like that. Yeah. It led to, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because it almost said, or the way that it was worded made it feel like, okay, we're targeting single family homes or small multifamily homes. But what this could do is that this could actually push people towards maybe condos and everything, which in a lot of areas they're struggling. I mean, they're not able to either rent out for small time lenders or even for just trying to sell them outright. I mean, do you think this could actually boost that market up a little bit? And then you'd say, hey, let's buy a bunch of condos, and once 25,000 kicks in, just add that bonus to it.
So here's one thing I was running the numbers on when she first said that was, what's more impactful, the percentage, the APR, or the $25,000 to put down towards either closing your down payment? Which one makes more sense? So a lot of people don't know that if it's your first time home, you can put down anywhere from, Tyler, correct me if I'm wrong, 3.5% to 5%. Is that right now?
Yeah.
So 3.5%, 5%. If it's an investment property, you're looking at anywhere from 20 to 25, maybe 15 if you have some connections. So this doesn't affect the investors. It's more of the first-time home buyers. So what makes more sense? Is it the $25,000 down, so you can put it down towards your 3.5% or 5% down, or getting an APR or interest rate of closer to like 3.5% or 4.5% or even 5% versus the 6.5% or 6.75% that we have now? So when I ran the numbers, $25,000 down doesn't make but a couple of dollars difference in your PITI, your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, your monthly mortgage. But if you change the interest rate, starkly different story. It comes down several $100s. So what makes more sense to you is obviously save more money, and that's going to be, and pay it off, put more money towards principal, is going to be lowering the interest rates. I don't think, and the feds are not supposed to control the interest rates or have an impact on them. I think that if Donald Trump goes into office, I think he's going to push that envelope to lower the rates more and faster. If Harris goes in, I don't see that happening. Now, has it happened in the past? Yes. The last time it happened that I know of was when Reagan was in office. It was the highest interest rates in the history of the U.S. It was somewhere around, I want to say 19%. So he pushed for the feds to have the rates dropped. And this isn't my wheelhouse as much as it is Tyler's. So, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, by all means.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I think we know, like, we already have had Trump in office, so we know his playbook, and we know, like you said, Reagan, same thing. A lot of people who are in alignment. Interest rates is the most impactful lever that they can pull in order to stimulate growth. I mean, regardless of what industry, it's like you drop rates, things become more affordable. You can finance homes, businesses, work equipment, all these things. It's going to spur growth. And I agree with you on the credit. I mean, if you look at it, the interest rate is much more important than that initial 25 grand, in my opinion. I mean, and it's cool, like when you see free market, right? There's things called 3-2-1 buy downs that have always been around, but they became into popularity the last couple of years because rates were so high. That has a huge effect on your monthly payment. Now, granted, you still have to qualify at the top, but still, for those first 3 years, it was making those mortgage payments much more palatable for 3 years in a row and gradually working up to a point where it would be at the full rate. But I think, again, free market, these people realize in 3 years, our rate's really going to be at all the note rates that they signed. Absolutely not. And then people will refinance. So, yeah, I mean, I saw too that I was doing a little bit of research. I know this is shocking before this, but too, it's like, so it said that the sources that I was reading said that Harris is always going to target corporate ownership of homes, things like that. I don't see how that's going to work. I mean, I think that horse is already out of the barn. And I think a lot of them are doing build to own, right? And to your point about condos, California legislation, for example, they're showing you where we're going. There's not a lot of development happening because regulations are so tough, but our ADU laws are extremely relaxed right now. And then they're also allowing the conversion of like a fourplex, let's say, into 4 condos. So that's going to make stuff more. They're showing you, okay, this is what we want to do. This is how we think we're going to solve the housing crisis in California specifically. Now, as an investor, I'm thinking, well, then what fourplex or duplexes can I go find that makes sense to split into 4 different condos or 2 different condos and then resell them and then move forward? Yeah, but I agree, Aaron. I think that the 25 grand versus other things you can do, I don't see it being that beneficial. And I've always seen large wholesale lenders, and they're super aggressive. They have to make loans to make money. Billions of dollars originated a year. Who do you think is going to do better at fixing this? People who are in government, or people whose entire livelihood and thousands of jobs of all these people they employ are hey, how can we create growth for ourselves? I always think private business is going to be more effective. And then Aaron put something up there. Remember, I mean, anytime you drop 1 percentage point or increase, it's going to change that buyer pool by 5 million people. It goes down 1%, you're introducing 5 million into the market. It goes up, you're obviously going to remove. So if they can use interest rates, the market's going to change much quicker.
God, I love when he goes on a tangent.
I forgot.
He's just so smart. Harrison, you do long-term investing. Mark told me. So, like, is it going to impact you doing like long-term? And I mean, Mark, you do the same thing. You guys are actually all three of you guys do long distance investing. Like, does that scare you at all?
At the moment, no. That was the funny thing, was that I'm also looking at Harris's proposals. We look at the other ones, like I think the only one that scares me is the unrealized taxable gains tax. I think that's the only thing that would say, okay, it might be time to get out of real estate, or, but other than that, I mean, nothing really scares me whether who wins or loses. That's been the weird, like, even though they are almost polar opposites on how they look at the rental or looking at taxing, I'm like, well, I have my properties. This is, I can survive 4 more years of whatever goes on.
Yeah, I think Dennis, who just closed on his first turnkey property in Ohio, makes a great point in a comment. He goes, I think one of the intangibles that certain political candidates bring to the table is confidence. There are many investors that are just going to have more confidence if specific people are elected. So I think that's a great point to kind of what Aaron was also bringing up. If it, just the mindset. And I keep hearing all of you kind of mention playbook maybe and pandering. And as far as, we're talking about kind of political views. So like you're saying, and I even see it at my fire station. Some of the guys I talk to, when they hear, 25,000 assistants, they think it sounds great, right? They don't understand how it's actually affecting them, or does it make things better for the housing market. They just hear like free money and they think like, oh yeah, this is going to be super helpful. And I think that's what is also super important, is this, it's not like you're saying, are they just putting out policies that make it sound great, right? And I think last night's debate also, there was a lot of words, but no real substance, right? No policies, no solutions to things. And I think that's also why I think you don't have to like follow politics as much as probably Aaron does, but you have to kind of know what's going on to really kind of, be able to navigate through different situations.
I'm also a different breed. Like, I'm one of the few people who was born in DC and raised around DC my entire life and work in DC. So I'm constantly bombarded on all sides. And we have people coming from the city who are far right, and we have people in the city from far left. Then we have the people who are trying to veto stuff, and then we have the overseas people who are coming. So like, it's constantly in my face. So it's a little different than the average person in the U.S. So for me, I'm also leaving in 4 years because I don't want to be in this cesspool or swamp, as Trump likes to call it. And it is. I mean, there's a lot of, we talked about this last time I was on the podcast, is that a lot of our elected officials are not stand-up people. A lot of them are crooks. A lot of them are self-serving people. So like, that's what I see. And I also have more backstory to running calls for like their mistresses or their drug addict kids or whatever it might be. So like, these people are just human like everybody else, but they're flawed humans like everybody else. They're not above the law, even if they think they are. Well, they might be. Depends who they are. That's what they can get away with. But yeah, I mean, for all intents and purposes, for investing in the DC metro area, we're a very insulated location. So like, it's very expensive. When the market crashed in 2008, this area didn't drop as much versus other places like less populated areas. I'm not going to call it anybody. But what do we have here that everybody else doesn't have? We have federal government. You have to have your jobs here. So it's easier for me to have an opinion on my micro market than try to paint the picture with a broad brush. And that's another thing a lot of people don't talk about, is what are your microeconomics, your macroeconomics? You know, does it affect this town versus this town? Does it affect this city versus this city? How far outside of a major demographic city where there's a high demand does it affect? So obviously smaller towns like we'll say in North Carolina, right? They just got crushed, absolutely crushed. I've got a bunch of friends down there that are either woodworkers or firefighters or people working for the government, and the infrastructure there is not there to get rebuilt fast. Whereas somewhere like where all of us live at, it's going to get repaired and replaced a whole lot faster because there's a higher demand and a bigger push, especially for politics. So the little guy gets left behind a lot of times unless the big guy stands up for him. So this area is, for me, a different animal than most.
Yeah, and it makes me think about different markets because I'm a little bit further south than you, Aaron,
Yeah.
but it's like where I invest is in Northeast Ohio, and I mean, so when you hear that $25,000, that is a full down payment right there. You get 20%, so that's going to be a lot more enticing to other people. And once I was going through the thoughts, because I've watched most of the interviews, it's interesting because the Harris campaign, they're all doing just like exact numbers, like 25,000 or 2 million or something like that. And then where I feel like the Trump campaign has gone all percentages. And I feel like, do you think that there's a loss in translation somewhere? Or is it just
Percentages swing the pendulum bigger than
right?
finances. So
Right.
people who don't understand finances look at a big number and say 25,000, holy cow. But then you have people who are more educated and understand budgets, and they look, okay, 6% versus 3.5% is a big difference. It's more than 25,000, especially over the life of the loan. I think that when people throw big numbers out there like that, like 25,000, why are we pandering $25,000 to first-time home buyers, but we're only giving $750 to start to the people who are affected in North Carolina? And that's not even, a lot of guys aren't even getting that.
Right.
I'm looking at the average house cost in each of our areas. In Honolulu, it looks like the average house, not Honolulu, in Hawaii, the average house cost is closer to 700, 750. LA, where closer to Tyler is closer to 965,000. The DC metro area, the average house cost is closer to $600,000. So that's for your first time home buyer, for the average house, you're looking at $25,000 down. That only affects you $20 or $30. Right. So what makes more sense? Saving $100,000 over a lower interest rate over the course of 30 years, or $25,000 down, and then you pay, $100,000, $200,000 more over the life of that loan. So just talking points.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, it's also like how do other things are affected, like stock markets or crypto or not just real estate. Like, what else are you guys investing in that you think would be affected by the government?
I mean, stock prices, right, are going to get affected just depending on legislation because certain companies are going to benefit and others are going to get hurt. I mean, so I would think that like our 457 and stuff like that would vary. I'm trying to think of what else. If you're starting a new business, how business friendly or unfriendly is the candidate, and how is that going to affect you moving forward? So I think those things, but like for me, I mean, the biggest thing for me is interest rates. That's my mortgage business is a large percentage of my income. Well, everything, almost my entire income right now is tied to real estate, right? And then most of it's mortgage. So I would say interest rates are huge. But I think that would be it for me. Would be the interest rates.
Yeah, I put in a lot towards growth stocks as well. So, okay.
Let's say Josh, thanks for stopping by. He says that 25K would just make starter homes more expensive. Said moron policy.
It's like me giving you $5 and then raising the price of whatever product you're trying to buy. Like, here's a $5 soda can, right? Now I'm going to raise the price to $10 because I just gave you $5. I know there's going to be a financial benefit for me. So the county I live in is doing the same thing. Is they're giving you a financial credit of impervious surfaces, which is not blacktop or concrete. It's like stuff that water goes through, rocks, stones, pavers. But in order to qualify for that payment, you have to use one of their designated contractors that are approved to install this stuff. So all those contractors just raise the price $5,000 because they know you're getting the $5,000 as a grant. So it's more on politics. I agree with Josh. Me and you are gonna be friends, buddy. I think you and I would.
Well,
agree.
yeah, it's like, you know, any subsidy
Oh, yeah.
is not going to necessarily get passed on as a benefit to the consumer. It's usually going to get eaten up by the business.
Right.
Just for reference,
Yeah, I also forgot
I'm
to
learning the
put.
numbers. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish up, man.
So I was running the numbers while we were talking, and average house cost in the U.S. right now is $416,000.
Mhm.
So if you do a 5% interest, a down
Down
payment of
payment.
5%, interest rate of 6.5%, which is what it is now, you're paying $2,670. And then if you do a 5% loan, which is 1.5% lower, your rate comes down to $1,787. So it's a difference of about $1,000 a month just in interest rates.
Randy
Sorry.
Starnes. Not sure who you are, but thanks for stopping by. Reach out if you want to connect on things. But yes, MAGA 2024. Let's see. Joe
Make
V is
groceries
here.
affordable again.
Yes. But thanks for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit that like button. Go check out. And this is what I kept trying to get in there and say it, but I forgot to mention at the top. Aaron and Tyler do have a podcast, First Responder Financial Freedom. It's on YouTube, Spotify. Go check it out. Go give them a like, subscribe. Still waiting for Harrison's channel to get off the ground. Waiting for his first video. But yeah, do you guys want to say anything before Aaron hops back in? You know, any other political views? Or... He's been kind of mellow. I haven't had to hit the mute button on him yet. So that's good.
No, he has. And he is. I mean, he's in the epicenter, right?
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
So good or bad, how little I pay attention to stuff is I didn't even know there was a debate last night. So,
not debate, sorry, interview. Yeah.
Interview, right? You know what I will say about this too, and like the podcast that I normally listen to, I'm noticing there's a podcast called All In. I'm not sure if you guys have ever heard about it, but it's it's awesome. And I like it because it's they're all across the spectrum, right? You have conservative, liberal, everything, but they've had Trump on. They've had Cuban on, who obviously is not running for anything, but they're going into there's way more substance there when you have long form. And I feel like even like Trump, there's less, he's not pandering. He's just talking with them for 2 hours. And I'm like, this is like way more beneficial for me to listen to about that candidate than anything I could ever listen to on a debate. In 2 hours in a relaxed setting, he was just going off, and the questions that they asked him, more often than not, he answered. So I'm sure if I were to dig, and I don't think Karras actually is doing any of these, but those things were way more beneficial. It was super interesting to listen, and I liked. I don't know. So Mark Cuban, huge, obviously, very wealthy. He's definitely not voting for Trump, and it was interesting to hear his take on it too, right? I mean, everybody's going to vote for who they vote for. I don't shy away from listening to both sides though, because like that interview for me was super interesting because they're all friends with Cuban, and they were going back and forth big time, and they weren't like just it. So it was just very interesting. So for me, I mean, I didn't know what was going on last night, but I try not to let it get me so worked up, and just kind of stay informed. But I have to invest. I have to make money for my family regardless, right? It's up to us. Nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's going to prepare you for retirement other than yourself. So I listen, I see, and I adjust. It's like I always use this, Mark, when I'm qualifying a lot of my fire guys is, hey, we're going to have certain trigger points. If this happens, then we do this. If this happens, then we do that. And you just work your way down the line. And so I don't know. It's Aaron usually is a lot more fired up. Maybe his coffee hasn't hit, or maybe his coffee did hit, and that's why he had to go use the restroom. Who knows?
No, he said he had a delivery coming, so he said he might have to hop off. But the funny thing you just mentioned, Tyler, was kind of how no one's coming to save you or help you, and I think that's the big difference that you're seeing, right? One side is always promoting how they're going to assist or give you some handout or something, and one side is pretty much tries up to give you the opportunity to make yourself succeed. And I think that's the biggest difference. New dishwasher, yeah. So, but you did mention All In, and David Sachs is one of the people on the panel, and what he did he did post something. He said if Kamala Harris falls behind in the polls, she will have to do more media interviews. But if she does more media interviews, she will fall further behind in the polls. It's a doom loop, and that's kind of what we're
Yeah, he
seeing
calls
right
it the
now,
doom
right?
loop.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she's struggling in the polls. You see her doing more and more interviews now, and now it just seems like it's getting worse and worse for her. Dennis did have a question, so maybe this might be up your lane, Tyler, or maybe you can find out information for. Dennis asked, a little off topic, but has anyone heard of a second home mortgage, like a vacation rental? Just watched a couple's videos on it, some stipulation with it, but it can be a good way to get into short-term rentals.
Do you want me to answer that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, the second home rental, there's always been primary residence, second home, and then investment property. So this is actually something good to address because this is what happens when you take advantage of things. A lot of people bought homes claiming they were going to be a second home, knowing full well they were going to turn them into Airbnb or short-term rentals. So what has happened now is the lenders have caught on, and guess what? There's no longer a break for second home versus investment property. The same additional hit now applies for both. Like, let's say you used to be able to qualify for a primary residence, it would be 4%, right? You could get a second home maybe at 4.25, 4.5, just slightly higher than a primary, if much at all. Now they're bunching all of that into investment. You can still call it a second home if that's what it is, but you're not going to get a great interest rate. It's going to be the same thing as an investment property. There's not really a big difference anymore. That bummed me out because I mean, I would like to have like if you go get a lake house or a mountain house or something, you don't want to be paying 20 to 25% down, all of these things. But most importantly, the biggest thing is the rates are almost the exact same. And it's because people abuse the heck out of the second home loan, knowing full well it was going to be a short-term rental. So anytime you do primary residence or short-term rental, you have a 12-month deed restriction. You cannot rent that property out for the first 12 months or you're in violation of, it's basically, they call it occupancy fraud. And they target it big time now. And with everything being automated, AI, all this stuff, if your water bill all of a sudden changes and it's no longer going to the same property, ding, 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 guess what? That person's not living there. What happened? So, so for second home, you have to stay there. Usually it's greater than 6 months, 50% of the time. It is, some will have different, but yeah, there's always going to be a deed restriction of 12 months. And then you can do whatever you want. So my thing is, why abuse it? Why not just play by the rules? Figure out a strategy to where you have that property for 12 months, and then afterwards you can do whatever you want with it. You can get a primary residence at a primary residence rate, live there for 12 months, move out. That's house hacking, right? The whole thing with house hacking is make sure you do it right, and you can repeat it as many times. The lenders aren't going to say, hey, you followed the rules, we're going to call your note due. No, it's when people try to skirt stuff, that's when stuff happens. But yeah, second mortgages used to be a lot better. The pandemic accelerated big time this whole, I'm going to buy a second home and turn it into a business. And it screwed everybody.
So I did that. I did that with one of my properties. I bought it. And when I was reading the fine print about it, it was 14. You can live there for more than 14 days a year. And 10% of the total days that you rent to others. Or something like that. I can't remember the exact numbers, but it's something along those lines. Like you can't stay there more than you rent it out for, but it has to be a minimum of 14 days or something to that effect. Is that still in play? Do you know?
Well, it's probably 14 out of the 30, right? And I think that's what it is because they don't want you living. They don't want you renting it more than you would occupy it.
14 days a year. Hang on, 14 days a year or more than 10% of the total days that you rent to renters. I don't know if that's.
I have not heard.
That's August of 24. So yeah, I mean, the crux of it is that there are stipulations for staying versus making a rental. So like you can make, it's just like investing. Like if you're gonna if you're going to flip a house, right, and you're doing a 9-month renovation, why not just hold on to it for an additional 3 more months and then sell it with 1 year and 1 day and get hit with a long-term capital gains instead of a short-term capital gains? You just got to know what chess moves to play. We're trying to play checkers, but it's actually a game of chess. Or I'm trying to play checkers. You guys are playing chess.
Can you buy a primary? You can. So I'm reading this.
Josh
So
also mentions, yeah, he agrees.
Yeah.
Yeah, Josh just mentions, yeah, get a loan product that suits your needs. Don't try to cheat the system. He agreed with you, Tyler.
Yeah. Well, it screwed everybody, to be honest with you. I mean, dude, second home rates were legit forever. I've been doing loans for 20-ish years around there, and they've always been great. And then now people that are older, they're like, oh, I want to get a second home. And I'm like, congratulations, your rate's the exact same as Aaron or myself if we're buying a rental property. It's just they catch on. And like this too, right? So can I rent out one side and occasionally move back to Lynchburg? I mean, FHA is what most people do in this scenario, right? They buy a duplex with FHA. Dude, it's occupancy fraud. I don't know how else to say it. So, like, okay, so 3 out of the 4 of us are firemen, right? We do CE, right? Every year we have to do CE. For my department, I'm pretty sure it's going to be the same answer for you guys. What is most of our CE centered around? Things that have hurt or killed people in the last year. Wrong drug dosages, inappropriate intubation, weird gastric intubation, and oh, this person never got a tube down and they died because oxygen never got delivered to their body. Epi is a big one for us, right? Wrong concentration of epi. They're given the wrong concentration of epi and they die. So what happens the next year? All of our continuing education is based off of those certain things. For mortgage, it's the exact same thing. Guess what I've done in the last 2 years? 90% of the education as far as electives go, occupancy fraud. They are 100% onto it and they're targeting it big time. And it's loan fraud. It's not like, oh, it's a slap on the wrist. It's loan fraud. So I can't really say, oh yeah, you can do whatever you want. Just know that they are deeming it as fraud.
A lot of your medic just came out to the forefront, Tyler. Like a lot of your nerd stuff.
Sorry.
Epi
1 to 1,000, 0.3 milligrams. I am.
So, I mean, I've looked at to answer the question. Also, I've looked at a fourplex at the beach. It's 1.2 or 1.4 million dollars, I think it was, and I'd have to occupy one of the 4 units, and then rent the other ones out in order to qualify for like an FHA loan. But like, if I use a VA loan, like that has to be your primary property. So like, there's a lot of nuances, and it seems like every year the rules change just a little bit to get you in trouble. So I think you just need to know what the guidelines are within that year frame, which Tyler, just went on a tangent about with his EpiPen. But yeah, I just know the rules that you're getting into every single year, because what I tell you now, like what the stuff I learned back in say 2004, 2005 is starkly different than the stuff I'm learning now in 2024. And it's going to be different in 25 and 26, especially whatever rules they decide to change in the government, which is kind of why we're having this conversation anyways, is because what rules are they going to change that's going to affect us? And is it going to be a positive or a negative? I think that the pandering, whatever side you want to pick, I don't care. The pandering is going to push to make the little man look like the underdog, which is Americans are always fighting for the underdogs. Like, yeah, stick up for that guy. Yeah. So I think that they're going to do a lot of pandering, even though the ones that they're pandering to are not going to make financial moves. They're just trying to get the votes. So I personally think that the changes are going to affect the people who are actually using their money, not the ones who were that they're pandering to. I found the cop in the comment section. Thanks, Joe.
All right. Yeah, well, yeah. Joe couldn't pass the fire exam, so he's a cop, and he's he's an ex-cop, but he's in Wisconsin, so he's out there. He's always messing in the chats, but he's a good guy.
Do they actually need cops in Wisconsin? I didn't know they actually had crime up there, except for Winosha, whatever the hell it was. I always like how the cops come by the firehouse to watch the football games. Like, aren't you guys supposed to be doing something?
They sleep in the same chairs that we sleep in, and then they always talk about training with interrupting eating and sleeping. LA County Sheriff sat next to me many a day.
We had one cop show. So I worked my last firehouse was in a bar district. It was the big popular get drunk area. So it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. And we hear bang, 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 bang on the door. Like, what the fuck? We walked out. We walked out, and it's sounded like a cop knocking on the door. So we walk out, and this guy standing there like, "What do you want, man?" And he picks up his shirt like this, and his badge is hanging on his bare chest. He's like, "I need you to come in." Like, what are you doing? He's like, "I gotta come in." He's like, "I'm a cop." So we let him in, and he apparently slept the entire night. Slept through every call that we ran. He slept through the next shift breakfast, and then they finally like, "Hey man, you got to go. It's like 10 o'clock in the morning."
Joe says
We
you
have the
guys
best
do have
TVs.
the
Thank you,
best
Joe.
TVs.
That's true.
All right.
How about
Where
crypto?
were
Like, do
we
you guys
again?
dabble in crypto at all?
I don't.
Yeah, I do. I have a small portion Ethereum, Bitcoin, Cardano. There's a few others, and I mean it's one of those where it's flat right now. A lot of people back in the pandemic days were just looking for ways to how to exponentially grow their money. It's not the smart contracts that are the real tool behind it. I don't know. I don't really see a huge growth behind it at the moment.
I dabble in it too, and I have some friends
Yeah.
who they mine it and they own mining companies, and they're kind of big into it.
Mhm.
It seems to me, and I could be wrong, this is just my assumptions on crypto because I've got very little of it, is if Trump makes office, then they're not worried as much about the market. If Kamala makes office, I think more people will dump money into crypto to hedge their potential inflation loss. And inflation's a big thing. Like, that's one thing I think that's been a hot topic or a hot button topic for the last couple of months is inflation. And yes, to a degree, the government caused the inflation. But it's also supply and demand. It's also corporate greed. So I'm for the conservative side, but at the same time, when people are like, "Oh yeah, Biden caused all this inflation," if you look at it, the cost from say farm to the middleman stayed the same, but the cost from middleman to supplier or store has increased. So when the prices came down, so the cost of feed came down for the farmers, so did the price of the eggs come down? No, not really, depending on where you are. So like, is inflation caused strictly by government? No. A lot of times it's caused by corporate greed. So is corporate greed and the government hand in hand? And that's the kind of question we have to ask is if we're moving forward, does the government going to push and put policy in place to make it more affordable and stop gouging the prices? There's to be determined. Same thing for import export. You know, if Trump goes into office, I know he's going to try to put tariffs in place to increase the cost of import exports, and we do a lot of that from Amazon to Temu to storage houses to a lot of our food comes from overseas. I think solar panels was a conversation I had with a guy a couple weeks ago. Solar panels only have to be built 60% in the U.S. in order to have it made in the U.S. sticker put on it. So a lot of times they're just getting the whole panel from, say, China, because they're the biggest builder of solar panels in the country, in the world. They ship it over here and like, okay, here's your directions. Put this plastic piece here, this plastic piece here, this plastic piece here. Screw this in. Okay, now you guys have a working solar panel that you can say made in the U.S. So the tariffs on those kind of things are going to go up. I have a whole tinfoil hat that I'm going to stay away from for now. We'll hold that hat to the side for a couple minutes. We'll come back to that because me and Mark like to have these conversations on the side.
Hey, don't throw my name out there.
I've got text proof, sir.
Oh.
Incriminating evidence. All
Yeah,
right,
but
the one I did.
screw it. Let me do one
I
tinfoil
did
hat
it.
thing, okay?
Okay.
I think they're doing
All
a
right,
snowball for P. Diddy or Puff Daddy or Sean Combs, whatever you want to call him. I think they're doing a snowball for him to put him in the forefront for pedophilia and child trafficking and sex trafficking to deter from the Epstein list and who's involved. They'd rather have the scapegoat of the famous Hollywood actors and the rappers and the music cartel than the elected officials and government officials and rich famous people from all over the world. So there's my tinfoil hat for conversation start. That's the story I want to hear. Joe, I knew we'd be friends, buddy. Just send me a Facebook friend request.
Yikes. But I guess I'll go back to. Oh, go ahead.
Watch out, Joe's
sorry,
going to all of them now. Go ahead,
but like
Harrison.
you, again, working in DC, like you hear about the brothels, or you hear about the madams, or you hear about the people who have dirt. So like, are these stories like, do they have a basis? I think they do, because my experience shows that they do. I'm not going to say frequent, but they have known to have been known to seek unauthorized and undocumented help. We'll say that.
Nice.
All right, Harrison, I'm sorry for cutting you off.
Oh, no. Yeah, but it's just, I was going back to the crypto stuff, is that I guess the biggest thing is like, all right, if it goes Trump's way, may go up, may go down, but if it goes Kamala's way, I think the biggest issue I see with it ever really manifesting is that it goes back into the mid 1800s when tokens were a way of pay for when people worked in what's it called, factories, and instead they lived in factory towns. That's where I'm kind of realizing that, okay, we still need the dollar here. It's like, even though people are looking at, I mean, blockchains and everything, blockchain technology is fantastic, but if people are looking to say, hey, I want to get out of the system, it's still followed. I mean, that's what the blockchain is. It's like, it's just immutable. It's there. And I mean, so people's purchases are going to be followed no matter what. And so I'm still trying to figure out what is the best avenue for using a blockchain technology, other than maybe replacing the Swift system to just make it more easy to follow rather than cash.
Agree. But it's just like our dollars and our coins. Like our coins up until 1965 were made of silver. Now they're made mostly of copper. So like, it's just about supply and demand. Like, what's the demand for it? And with inflation going up, our now copper quarters or iron quarters, whatever they're made of, are now worthless because they don't actually have a true silver in them. So like, it's just supply and demand. Sure. So like, for me, for the blockchain and for the crypto and stuff like that, like, it's just supply and demand. Like, I don't trust this government's financial decisions. So I'm going to put money into this because I know I can use this. It's not going to lose value, or it's going to stay flat, like you said. I mean, look at crypto back in 2008, I think it was.
Oh yeah,
pennies in the dollar, and now like the same one Bitcoin could go for, I think, what's the trading rate, like 16,000?
67.
67?
Yeah.
Man, fuck me, I shouldn't have sold it. God bless. You ever look back on your decision in life and be like, yep, didn't make the right decision there. This is one of those times.
That's what Mark's saying about having all of us on this episode.
This is going much better than I expected. I didn't have to hit the mute button one time for Aaron.
You started off on mute. I couldn't. I got one word and you muted me. I've only cussed one time.
Chris,
I'm like Gary Vee, like, man, like my passion comes out in the words I use. So I cuss a lot because I'm very passionate about what I'm saying. That's my excuse.
That's why I only invite you on like once a month. I don't think people can handle you yet. So it's like I have to give my audience a break. Nikki, remember Nikki? She came on that one time. She hasn't been back on since the last time you were on.
Oh, stop it! I'm lovable and likable. I'm like a cuddly pound puppy.
Let's see. So Chris, who's in Lynchburg, says, would the public accept higher tariffs with a reduction in income taxes to 0?
I mean, there's no way for me to know.
I would say yes, actually, because the idea of having the tariffs, because I mean, all right, you have the chances of every manufacturing being onshored. And so it's like, okay, so if I'm buying something from China, Vietnam, or something, Japan, it's like, okay, it's going to be a more premium product. But then it's like, oh, made in the USA. It's like, hey, I don't have to pay on this as much. And then on top of that, it's like, hey, I don't have to pay 30 plus 40%, who knows, 40% on my earned income on that point. I mean, it would take some talking, but it's one of those where I think a lot of people just on the basic level would be like, yeah, sure, I'm okay with that.
Percentage wise, like for income taxes, Tyler, a podcast we did a long time ago, we talked about this. I think you looked it up. It was something like 40% of your money goes to income, or it goes to taxes. Now it could be like property taxes, your income taxes, your sales tax, your whatever type of tax you guys have in whatever jurisdiction you are. But the average was like 40% of your money goes to the government. So after all you're buying your goods and stuff, like at the end of the day, your livable money is usually only has about 40% left. I'm sorry, 60% left of what you started with. So if you make $100,000 a year, you're actually only making, say, $60,000 a year after all your taxes. Was that right? Did I remember that correctly?
Something about that, yeah. And then the other thing is, if they say you work, is it you work from January to July in some cases for the government? Yeah. How gnarly is that? I mean, if you put it in those terms, that's so crazy. You work half the year for the government and then half the year for your family.
If they do now, so if they do a overtime doesn't get taxed, that to me would be a great financial benefit to all Americans, especially the blue collar guys. It could be electric, it could be the linemen, it could be plumbers, it could be whoever's working overtime. I think that's a great incentive. I think for me, I talked to my wife about this last night. If I work 2 overtimes, it's like almost the equivalent of getting 1 paycheck.
To that point, that's like I've heard that too, and I think that's like so to me that whole thing right there is brilliant, because I mean, for blue collar, I don't know about any other like areas, but for blue collar, especially firemen, trades, things like that, most of their money is made in overtime. So when you bring that up, that's like a home run. Like, hey, that is a little pandering too, I guess you could say.
It is.
But I mean, dude, that's like you said. I don't know very many firemen that don't work overtime unless they're trying to do stuff like we do, and then they hit that point where they no longer have to, or police or anything. I mean, I always see nurses picking up extra shifts. Like you said, I mean, dude, any trade would love that.
Yeah.
But I think, too, I also believe you do that, you're going to increase the average worker's take-home pay, increase their quality of life. They're going to spend, and that all will trickle down. And I think, I don't know. I like stuff like that because that's something that, what are you promoting? People to work harder, contribute more to the economy by spending more, things like that, as opposed to some tax credit for 25 grand that boom, poof, it's gone. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. And you get a guaranteed 40-hour work week person who is putting effort into the economy to make the economy better. So like,
yeah,
I think it is a little bit pandering, and I don't know how it will transpire because, you know, I think at least three of us are contract employees. Like we're under our union contract. So do we step outside of our contract, and every overtime we work, is it federally mandated that we're getting paid, we're not getting taxed on it? Like, how does that play out in contract negotiations, especially in unions? That's something I have a big question about.
Yeah, would they change your pay rate too? Like, hey, since you're no longer getting taxed,
right,
now that it's time and a half, you're going to get paid time and a quarter, right? I mean,
yeah,
right.
I don't know. I think politics is a very dangerous slippery slope because. Sorry, go ahead, Mark. I'm not trying to take over your podcast. I swear to God.
No. Go out. No. It's great. I was just gonna say, you know, Tyler was mentioning we work, you know, like till July for the government. I was just gonna say Joel will probably say the firefighters only working till like, you know, March or something for the government, or you know, not putting in as much time. But I just threw that out there before Joe had a chance to. But go ahead, man, Aaron.
I think the policy. So everybody says, well, Kamala doesn't stand on a policy, and you know, Trump's putting all his policies out there that he wants to try, and that's a lot of things that people don't understand, in my opinion, from, you know, the blue collar workers, is the policy will dictate how our finances and our money is affected, right? So if you're telling me this is the policy you're going to try to push, then how is that going to affect me and my life and my loved ones and my friends, versus somebody who's being very transparent about it and saying, this is what I plan on doing. Okay, I can work with that, or I can't work with that, or I have questions about that, or is this going to actually take place? So I think a lot of things that the issues we see with Kamala is that when she doesn't stand on policy, we have no idea how it's going to affect us. So the only reason you vote for her would be because you don't like Trump, because you can't say that she's done stuff or she has plans because she hasn't promoted anything. My mom hates when I get in this rant because she's like, I like Kamala. I think she's very, very well educated and smart woman. Okay, Mom.
Well, and to your point, I think, do you think her lack of clarity on stuff is causing people who are undecided to be a little fearful? Like, I don't know. If you don't know what somebody stands for, regardless of which side, to me, it's like, well, I'd rather take somebody who maybe I don't agree with stuff, but they're very straightforward, as opposed to somebody who's like a flip flopper or like wishy washy and you're not really sure what's going on. I mean, that's the scary thing to me. And Aaron, I think you from the last election, we cannot underestimate, no matter who you voted for last time, is how much the power of anybody but Trump is a powerful thing in other areas, right? I mean, for sure it is. That's definitely a thing. And it's always, I love talking about this with like my I have a lot of friends through high school because some of them have gone that way. It's like, dude, I don't care.
You're in California. I don't believe it.
No, dude, no. I mean, well, Orange County, where I grew up and where I still live to this day, has been a conservative stronghold forever, dude. I mean, it's just always has. But a lot of people are so tired of it. They're like, I don't care. I'm voting for anybody but him, too. So,
yeah. But I mean,
yeah.
Go ahead, Harrison. I was
I think the only thing I was going to say was that the one thing that I was kind of, and once again, I don't know if it's pandering, but she did take up removing tax on tips following when Trump said it as well. That was like, that's not a bad thing. I mean, because that's going to be a big following that I'm sure she has. And so if he's got that, I mean, I don't know. It's like that was a policy that she definitely stood up for. But once again, is it pandering? Is it going to happen? I don't know. So.
And then again, like the people who are taking the tips, like, do they always say, "Oh yeah, actually, I made $100 tonight"? Well, I actually made like $20 tonight, Uncle Sam. Like, I don't want you. Right. Like, there's no way. That's one of the reasons that you go to a laundromat or a strip club or something like that, where they can launder money, is because the money is not traceable. So if you put, $1,000 worth of quarters in the slot machine or the stripper, then I mean, who's going to know? At the end of the day, it's up to them to be honest.
Okay, where's that mute button?
I will say, I don't know if you guys have ever done it, but I worked in the service industry, like, most of my high school and college. Like, dude, your tips are everything. From what I remember, I think we got paid minimum wage. Oh, yeah. And then your tip income was like the big, I mean, so you are right. I mean, that's a huge selling point for a lot of people who are in the service industry, because that's how you make most of your money. And Aaron is right. If it was cash, it was not always getting reported, because you knew, like, that's what, I mean, especially when I was 21 years old, like, how are they going to find out that I didn't report $50 cash?
Right. Exactly. I was wondering where you're going to go after my coin comment, but yeah, I think that was a good.
I had to be very careful and help Mark out.
But we do have a serious question from the former police officer, Joe V. He said, anyone think there are a lot of people saying they're voting for Harris, but will actually vote Trump in the booth, maybe to avoid harassment?
I think it's both sides.
Both sides, yeah.
It's depending on your circle, right? If you think that it's going to cause any type of issue, and they're just going to.
I agree. I mean, I see it in my firehouse, and I see it with in my family. Like, I have people who are left, and I have people who are right, and I have people who are center. It's just, do you want to, like they say, if you don't want to spend money on Christmas gifts, bring up politics during Thanksgiving.
There you
go.
I just tell my kids, hey, multiple candidates is the beautiful part of our country. You need it. Keeps everybody honest.
That's the problem. Is I think humans are inherently good. I don't think they're inherently honest.
Let's see. Chris says the Cantillon effect describes the uneven effect inflation has on goods and assets in an economy. Those who like Harris know they will receive money first and be able to purchase more.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, since I'm an educated economist, he talks about the Cantillon effect all the time on his channel. Talking about basically how we're offshoring everything right now, and so it's like the money's going out, it's going somewhere else, and so it's one of those where a lot of people are just, it's like, hey, I'm getting my cash now. And then it's like, I'll do a song and dance, but as long as I get paid,
Harrison, how often are you doing, say, renovations or repairs? And Mark, same thing, because I know you do in Pittsburgh. Like, how much are you guys paying in repairs and product to redo a house?
More than I wish. Let's just say that. It's like every few
Okay.
months there's always a little something that needs to be fixed up.
Mark, how about you? Like, do you think the policy change or the tariffs or anything like that will impact your the cost of goods for you to do repairs and renovations and flips?
In the short term, yes. There's a lot of things that a lot of things you
Yeah.
can't get out of China. Yeah.
So I say this is from a woodworking standpoint,
think
right?
that
So I use a lot of birch wood. Oh, sorry. I swear there's like a lag. I'm sorry, Mark.
No,
There
go.
has to be a lag. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
There's a delay between you two.
No,
That's
go
why it
ahead,
keeps
man.
happening.
I have no control. I'm not purposely trying to mute you or lag you.
All right, from a woodworking standpoint, so I own a small woodworking company, right? I use a lot of birch wood. Birch wood comes from over like in the Russia area, right? So anywhere is the Baltic is going to be where we import our wood from to do lasering for the laser lasering that I do for woodwork. So for me, once everything happened in Ukraine, Russia, and blah 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 blah, the cost of goods skyrocketed. The cost of goods skyrocketed, and it made me raise my prices for the end buyer. So is the same thing going to happen for the rest of our product and goods around the country? If we have to import it and the import costs more, does it make more sense to do the production in the U.S.? And the penny pinchers who run these big corporations, they're going to run these numbers and say, okay, we can save 1 million here, 2 million there by doing production in country versus out of country. I think the most recent one, the big company that got blowback was something like Harley or John Deere, something like that. They said they're moving production to Mexico.
Yep.
They got a big blowback because of it. But at the same time, like for them to keep their business afloat, they're going to have to lower cost productions because the government stepped in and charged X amount of dollars for whatever their product costs and goods increased by.
I
but
also
there's also
put
a huge issue with
Uneducated Economist's channel there, so go check it out. And then Aaron mentioned his woodworking, so go check him out on Instagram. Trying to get him to go more mainstream because right now you don't ship. You said, right? Or do you?
I don't ship for the most part. I don't ship. I'm too busy doing retirement plaques.
We're gonna change that, right?
And other stuff. Right now. I mean, if once I have a full healthy body and more energy, then maybe. But I'm still chasing my 15-month around. And I'm old.
True.
I'm an old dad.
And Harrison,
I'm a 43-year-old new dad.
Don't look a day over 50, Aaron. Not that I should talk.
Some people age with grace. Some people go bald. Some people go gray.
I got both, dude.
Yeah, we're not the grace ones, bro. I'm sorry to tell you.
No. Nope.
Harrison still looks young, so he still got energy.
Yeah.
Well,
I got the hair going, so it's like
there you go. See,
that's why I got the hat.
Party, bro.
Exactly.
All this real estate stress.
I know. Yeah.
that's real.
well, what's Aaron's channel? Hold on, I'm gonna post. You guys can chat real quick.
It's so the Tyler and I run a group. It's called First Responder Financial Freedom. It's for first responders who want to learn more about that their butt is worth more than the dollar amount that they designate in the seat at whatever station or cop car you're in. So we try to put ideas out there. I put all types of shit out there, from buying castles to lighthouses to I had a commercial conversation yesterday about building a campground in Delaware. And building maybe an assisted living facility. So like it's just kind of promote and push people outside of their comfort zone. But in terms of woodwork, the company, by company I mean me, is called Wildfire Creations. You can look at my website. I don't ship anything. That's most of the stuff I do now is like one-offs, or I used to do a lot of fire hose flags. Now it's mostly retirement plaques because I'm old and people are retiring.
You did Christmas ornaments for my station. I
did. I think I still got like 6 or 7 more somewhere that I didn't ship.
Aaron, on your castle thing, real quick. Do you guys know who Dan Pena is? The $1 trillion man.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
His brother is an LA County DC or chief deputy, and he owns a castle.
Here's the
There
thing.
you go.
Here's the thing.
Oh, here's the thing. Yeah.
Hear me out, okay? The first time I went to Ireland was probably about 20 years ago. I drove cross country in Ireland. I did from Dublin down around the south up to the cliffs, over to Galway, and then back across the center. I drove around and saw the whole country over the course of like probably 2 weeks, that lower half of the country. You could buy a castle back then for $400,000 or $500,000. That was livable, right? I could have bought a castle for the same price that I could buy a condo in DC. So when people, it is a pipe dream. It is one of those things that's kind of cool to have a goal at the end of the in your life to what can I get into. A lot of the castles in the U.S. are $2, $3, $10 million, $15 million, $20 million. When you go over to like Scandinavian countries, Italy, Ireland, you can still buy castles for cheaper than you can buy a house in the U.S. Now, is it feasible, and is it insulated, and is it cold, dank, dreary, and do you have ghosts? Good chance, but you're still in a freaking castle.
Mm.
And when I say, "Hey, Tyler, do you want to come hang out at my castle in Ireland?" Hey, Mark, do me a favor, Harrison. Let's get the guys together for a mastermind at my castle in Scotland, Fifeshire, Scotland. What are we gonna say? Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
But yeah, for that lighthouses and castles, it's just those are kind of two things I thought would be like I like niche things, and those are two things that I thought would be kind of a goal for like a lifetime goal, just in case I wanted to waste money on something.
We're already lords.
Exactly.
We had some quite.
So when we first started the First Responder Financial Freedom podcast and the group, I bought Tyler and Mike Webb a 12 by 12 section of land in Scotland, which is where my family is from. And that designated that we're landowners. So we're now lords or lairds, Lairds in Scotland. So Laird Tyler, Laird Foster, come to bless you with our presence. Oh man, but you gotta have fun. I mean, if it's also for investing, like if investing becomes too stressful and investing becomes too much of a headache, and like it's taking away from the quality of your life, then step back and reassess what you're actually doing. So like Harrison, I mean, other than him losing his hair, he looks still young and happy. Tyler looks a little more beat up. I look beat up. Mark's going bald dealing with people like me. So like at the end of the day, what's the best investment strategy for you that brings the least amount of headache with the most amount of return? And for me, for us, I think for all of us, it's probably real estate.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I just kicked out one of my tenants' boyfriends yesterday. So is it worth the cost and the headache for that house? Yeah. For other houses, probably wouldn't have been.
There is a question for you though, Aaron.
Where's that?
Yeah, our motto is it's so easy a cop can do it. That's our whole strategy.
Your supervisor groups, union's chief, allow for alternate investing seminars, or is it frowned upon? So I can only speak for DC. Every department is going to be different. If the union doesn't back the person, or if they don't have a union designation, then they won't promote the person coming to talk to you, like a financial advisor. I know this because one of the guys in the group is a financial advisor in Wisconsin or Michigan or something like that. Milwaukee, it's hell fun. I can't remember. So I invited him through our DCFD group to come talk, and the union said, no, we won't promote it because he's not being endorsed by our union. So no, they would not allow that. So I did it on my own through a DCFD investing group that I run on the side. And I had a lot of really, really good feedback because he had nothing to sell. He just wanted to do the same thing we do, is put you in a better place financially. In terms of the city does not allow sales or really anything to come to the firehouse because it gives them a bad look, like they're swaying one way or the other. Same thing for like Trump versus Harris signs, when all of they have that on property, because it gives a bias, and we're supposed to be unbiased. So there's a lot of room for improvement. I think some of the things I agree with don't put political signs in your front yard of your business, because it's going to deter your potential business. The place and fire, it'll give a bad look one way or the other, depending on who's looking at the sign. Short bus group. Who'd that come from?
That's from Josh, but Josh also has a good YouTube channel. So Rumble Seat Riders. I put his YouTube channel in the comments. So go check him out, subscribe. But yeah, same thing to your point. I think a lot of it too, we're trying to promote to our coworkers, the benefits of financial freedom. And I think, the department invests so much money in getting you prepared for the job. They don't necessarily want you, I guess, trying to retire early in a sense. So I wouldn't say it's frowned upon, but it's definitely remote.
Absolutely.
Do you guys for how you guys are going to invest? I mean, a deal's a deal at the end of the day, right? It's either going to cash flow or it's not. But on the back end, after you buy the deal, like the policy is going to dictate either how we make money or if we don't make money, what we can do with the project or property. So a lot of times people put the president-elect on this pedestal if he's the one that makes all these decisions, and they don't understand that a lot of this information is based on state level. So you can bash whoever you want to as much as you want to, but at the end of the day, are they actually in direct correlation of your decisions? And a lot of times at the state level, the state or city or local jurisdiction going to dictate or decide how you can use an asset. And it could be a yellow short bus for first responders, or that's like a drinking bus, or it could be an investment property like an assisted living facility. So the government's going to tell you what you can and can't do with your short buses. I haven't got muted yet.
Well, I was just gonna say this has been a great episode. Thanks for always doing this. But if there's anything else you guys want to dig into or go down some more, oh, okay. Troy had an offer. Okay, cool. But yeah, if you got anything else you guys want to dig into, wrap things up. Any predictions on the election or anything you want to say, Aaron? Give us something to think about before we shut it down here.
I just know that no matter who wins, we're going to have some kind of riot in probably most major cities. It just depends on people are using it for as an excuse to act like idiots. Because going and lighting a statue on fire or spray painting it is not going to affect anybody or anything at the end of the day. So whoever wins, just dictate your next chess moves or checkers moves, depending on which game you're playing, on what their policy is going to be and how it's going to change. It's just make sure that the local officials and the federal officials are in line with what you want, and that's who you should vote for. And Congress makes more decisions than the president does, so pay attention to your senators and congressmen who you're electing, not more than the president, but they're going to have more impact on your day-to-day life.
Yeah, I'd follow up with that. It's no matter who wins, be long-term focused. It may not be what you want. It may not be the most optimal outcome for either party, but it's just think about, okay, or this is what it is. And I mean, like you were saying, people were rioting. Well, a lot of them are in jail, or a lot of them are on certain lists. And so it's like, okay, well, this is the situation I have. Instead, it's like, hey, I'm going to invest in real estate now, or hey, I'm going to move to Canada now, or it's one of those things of where do you see yourself being the best asset? And I think that's before you act, think about that.
What's funny is that even if you are an American citizen and you decide to live somewhere else, you're still paying American taxes.
Yep.
So a lot of people who are like, I'm leaving, like, okay, well, have fun paying for Canadian taxes and U.S. taxes. Oh, you want to go to Ireland? Okay. Or Scotland? Okay. Have fun paying the Queen, and then also pay Uncle Sam as well. So a lot of people who make these like off the cuff comments or outlandish comments, they don't understand the ramifications of them actually leaving and if they actually would.
The one exception, Puerto Rico. So, which is
Guam.
Guam too. Yeah.
Costa Rica. Costa Rica's a good one.
Oh yeah.
Who you vote for? How you spend? I like that answer. That question.
All right, we can wrap this up. So, you know what? I haven't even put his channel. If you guys haven't subscribed to All Nighter Hider, go check him out. He's everywhere. He is doing some cool stuff in San Diego.
One of my best friends
And
growing up,
Gary,
his name was
Indiana.
Haidar Sarasi. So budget. I mean,
Joe
promote
B said
budget.
they never leave.
Mhm.
Yeah, very true. This was a lot more fun than I could have thought, but thanks for always doing this, you guys. I know, Aaron, try. Hey, I'm always trying to get you on. You're the one saying you can't come on, so I'm always trying to bring you back on.
Well, thank you, Mark.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark.
I appreciate you, Mark. Harrison, good meeting you.
thanks,
Tyler,
gentlemen.
good to see you, bro.
All right.
You
Likewise.
too.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Everyone.